What makes a man who built his legacy staying out of the spotlight suddenly come out of the shadows to create the biggest spectacle on earth? This video is a deep dive into Kendrick Lamar's album G&X, not as a mixtape, not as a flex, but as a look inside the mind of a killer. I want to talk about the meaning most people missed and why G&X might end up being the most important chapter of Kendrick Lamar's journey. My name is Kyle J. Shower and welcome to the Kyle J. Show.
We the big three, we the big three, we the big three.
It's just big meat.
Past 2 days felt terrible.
Let me tell you one of the best stories in the history of hip hop.
And you're telling me that Kendrick dropped again?
This to me has been the best rap battle I've ever witnessed.
Fight is over.
I see dead people.
Let's unite around this genius that is doing this phenomenal work. We can beef internally, but to the rest of the world, unified.
This is unity at its finest. Inglewood, California, y'all did this. Los Angeles, y'all did this.
Kendrick Lamar dropped a new surprise album. The album is called G&X, and it's his first full-length studio album since 2022.
The Grammy goes to Kendrick Lamar.
Nothing more powerful than rap music. I don't care what it is.
My name's Kendrick Lamar, and I'll be performing at Super Bowl 59.
We are watching someone go to a higher height than they had already been.
Turn this TV off, turn this.
This past year might have been the biggest of Kendrick Lamar's career, who has already had one of the most prolific careers of any artist ever. He was already in discussion for the greatest of all time, and now for a lot of people, there's no discussion. Kendrick is him.
Hemi Neutron. Hemi John. He's him. He's actually him. Can I get a bucket of your sweat?
Whether you agree with that or not, there's no denying that this past year was a defining moment, not just in the history of rap, but the history of music and art. The name Kendrick Lamar will be known as the winner of what might be the biggest rap battle of all time. His name will stand as the first ever solo rapper to headline the Super Bowl halftime show. His name is now written on 5 different Grammys for one song. It's the most decorated song in Recording Academy history. And then there's G&X. Today we're here to talk about this album because I question how it will be remembered amongst all these other historical moments and accolades. Especially when you look at G&X next to his other projects that were so intricate and layered and broke the internet with all kinds of crazy theories. How does G&X compare? A lot of other YouTube reviews of this album start off with the same kind of vibe, talking about how G&X isn't one of Kendrick's deepest albums, it's got more of a mixtape feel and is just way more commercial. And then they go through the whole album and give this big twist reveal that the entire time, the album is in fact a very deep album.
Gotcha, bitch!
I'm just gonna tell you straight up that this album goes deep and is much more than a collection of top charting bangers or some celebratory victory lap. I see a lot of meaning in this album that isn't being talked about in wider spaces or that some people just didn't even get.
Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. I mean, what does that even mean, right? If God's watching. God is watching! And why don't you shut up about God, Kendrick Lamar?
This is why I'm here. I'm not a hip-hop critic, I'm not a music critic, I'm a meaning critic. I'm not gonna sit here and act like Kendrick can do no wrong, but I think we at least really gotta understand the meaning he's trying to communicate before we criticize it. On that note, I do wanna acknowledge that there are many different approaches to assess the meaning of Kendrick's work, some of which I'm not qualified to speak on. I mean, I'm white. I'm not going to speak on something I know nothing about, and honestly, there's a lot of other great YouTubers who I would recommend for you to check out for that perspective. I'm going to stay in my lane and do what I do. Go read a book by Eckhart Tolle, nerd out on some existential bullshit, and try to relay the universal wisdom that I think can be found in Kendrick's work. Just so we're clear, the point of anything that's a generalization or widely applicable is to bring it into your relevant context. While I'll be speaking at a high level, I encourage you to listen to his music not just for the universal message, but for the way the universal message applies to the current context of our world today. G&X speaks on a variety of topics, but what interests me most is the way we get to see what the hell Kendrick was thinking thinking this past year. If you haven't really processed it, let me explain it as clearly as possible. This past year, we all collectively watched someone get verbally murdered in front of the whole world. And not only that, we got an album that goes into the mind of the killer himself. GNX is a case study that requires close examination because there is so much more than what meets the eye. We can't approach it as just the culmination of the greatest rap battle we've ever seen. GNX is the culmination of Kendrick Lamar's entire journey. The hero's journey laid out by late Professor Joseph Campbell reflects the formal structure of stories we've been told since the beginning of time. It contains a variety of general motifs where a hero is sent out on a quest, goes through some trials, maybe finds a lover, confronts the authority, or ends up in an intense battle with a dragon or something. Hold up, what was the name of the guy that Kendrick just battled? Drake?
Coincidence? I think not!
Okay. Maybe I'm stretching with that one. But there is a deep connection between Kendrick Lamar and the hero's journey because the whole thing is a metaphor for the creative process. It lays out the process as a journey between two worlds. One dives into the unknown world to bring forth something new for us in the known world. While this is something that the artist goes through with every work of art, the most important creation of life is creating who you are. Joseph Campbell believed the reason the stages of this journey could be found all around the world, across independent civilizations since the beginning of time, is because it symbolically represented the journey that each individual has to take in life. He put the hero's journey together based on modern psychology, an academic field that has had a large influence on the work of Kendrick Lamar. In 2022, a video even spotted him taking a course in psychology at the University of California, Los Angeles. Seeing that he's a hyper-creative individual and also a student of psychology, this connection to the hero's journey might not be as far-fetched as it initially seemed. It connects with his work conceptually, and it also connects with his own life and development as an artist. Each album is a part of his story that aligns with the particular stage of the journey. I could honestly do a whole video for each one, but for this video, I want to focus on where he's at with the release of GNX. As I said earlier, I don't believe this album to be the culmination of his victory over Drake. Defeating Drake was just one part of it all. Instead, I offer that GNX is the culmination of the entire journey and corresponds with the final phase in the hero's journey known as the return. The return is broken down into 3 stages: crossing the return threshold, master of 2 worlds, and freedom to live. In summary, it marks the point where the hero integrates the known and the unknown worlds and offers a new creation that can be used to impact their community. Tell me this isn't the Kendrick Lamar we've seen this past year. GNX marks the return. It contains the power, perspective, and wisdom he obtained from his experiences and expresses them through his art so that we can share in it. He sets the tone right at the top of the album with the song Whacked Out Murals. This song captures the essence of the first stage in the return known as crossing the return threshold. When a hero returns to the ordinary known world, they're often beset with the challenge of communication. Now, Kendrick has an incredible ability to articulate himself, so for him the issue is not so much about the challenge of finding the words to express himself, but more about the way people receive what he's saying. A popular example of a hero who goes through this is Harry Potter. Whenever he comes back home from Hogwarts, his family literally bullies the shit out of him because he's different and they don't understand him. In Whacked Out Murals, we can see Kendrick having to deal with the challenges of people receiving his message, even in his own hometown.
Yesterday, somebody whacked out my mural.
The song references an actual event that took place during his rap battle with Drake where a mural of him in Compton was vandalized. Not just once, but multiple times. He goes on to elaborate on plenty of other hate he's received, including calling out big names like Lil Wayne and Snoop Dogg.
Damn, I was on them edibles, man. I gotta be more careful.
This kind of rejection would lead many to abandon their journey and forgo the responsibility of using their gifts to impact the community.
That energy of make is moved to Europe.
Instead, he stands his ground and decides he's gonna make Cat Williams and them proud. The truth bout to get loud.
But let us get on the line, boy.
Kendrick takes on the responsibility of the hero at this stage and even uses this as an opportunity to have its own message of impact. In the chorus, he speaks a message of knowing your worth. He says, you are a god. Well, with that, he also sends a message that you gotta put your head down and work hard. Foreshadow. In his words, he offers us a couple rules of engagement here to guide you. While that's in reference to the specific advice he was giving in this song, I think it does set the tone for the entire album. As a whole, I'm gonna approach GNX as a guiding light to our own journeys, coming from a man who's already gone through it. Now, often his guidance is offered through reflections of things that got him to where he's at today. Sometimes the guidance is symbolic, and in others the reflection itself is the guidance. Combination of deep symbolism and reflection can be found in the song Man at the Garden. This song is very important for where we're going to take the direction of this video. In every album, Kendrick has one song that captures the message he's trying to communicate, and in GNX, That is this song.
With my projects, it always be that one record I feel like I want everyone to hear, you know what I'm saying? In order to push the narrative or just the message and the tone that I want to get across. To preserve a space for that one that I want everyone to hear, that's what what pushes me, man. That's why I like Man at the Garden, and even the fact that it's at the top of the record.
Man at the Garden is one of the most conceptually complex songs in the album. The basic idea is captured in the line that says, I deserve it all. Hang on, how many times does he say that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22 times! Now this idea isn't that complicated, and honestly, we could stop here and you'd probably get the message he's trying to communicate, but I'm here to dive deeper, and there's a ton of interesting symbolism and meaning that offers so much more around this basic idea. Now we've been talking about journeys, and this song itself is a journey. Musically, structurally, and lyrically. In the music, each verse has a unique addition that builds off the one before. The first verse introduces this laid-back groove and chord progression that you might have heard before because it's an interpolation of One Mic by Nas. The second verse takes that idea and then includes an addition of the grand piano over the top, and in the third verse, it's just one giant build that layers the pianos, the strings, the vocals. Structurally, there's a particular form that also feels like it's taking you on a journey, and it's actually become one of Kendrick's signature moves. Throughout his discography, you'll find tracks that have what I'll call an AAB structure. This is where the first two verses will have some kind of thematic connection, and then the third verse will come along and completely shift the meaning of it all. This is why you can't pull lines out of his songs. You have to put them in context, listen to how the song progresses, and hear the full story before you begin to interpret his work. Lyrically, the journey is set up in the very first lines of the song.
Twice emotional stability, a sound body and tranquility.
The duality between body and tranquility is representative here of the duality between the physical and the spiritual. Throughout GNX, you see the theme of this spiritual, physical contrast, and in Watch the Party Die, he even explicitly states it.
The more visible you get, the more your spiritual is tried. Critical, I know my physical is tested all the time.
This duality makes up the AAB structure of the song. The A section takes the perspective of the physical, and the B section takes the perspective of the spiritual. In the first two verses, he reflects on his physical achievements, but the emphasis is different between external and internal success. In verse 1, he flexes external material gains, such as stock investments, VVS white diamonds, homes on the beach, flying private, all that good stuff. He even flexes how generous he is with these material blessings.
He said 2.5 million on the average day.
Lastly, he emphasizes the recognition and respect he's gained from everyone, all the way from world leaders to crowds loud inside Ibiza. He's achieved everything you could ask for in the external physical world. Money, power, and freedom. In the second verse, he talks about his internal personal achievements. Not only is he a part of a select few who's achieved this degree of material success, he's also part of an even more select few who didn't let it get to their head.
Bitch, be humble.
He mentions victories in taking care of his mind, like keeping pure intentions and enduring temptations. And of course, to care for the mind, you also got to take care of the body.
I'm waking up at 6 a.m., 6 miles a day, conditioning my wind.
Then he lists all of his virtues. He tells the truth, never asks for too much credit, minds his business, writes words to elevate the children, prays for his enemies, you know, all the saintly attributes.
I seen you as a human first, even when you didn't understand your worth.
In verse 3, we move to the B section, and there's a dramatic shift in his storytelling. While the first two verses show his success in the physical, the third verse shows his success in the spiritual, which looks very different. Prior to this, his mantra was, I deserve it all. But now in the third verse, it's she deserves it all. We deserve it all. He deserves it all. You deserve it all. This shift in language expresses a shift to a spiritual perspective, a perspective that moves away from the egocentric point of view and out into a deeper awareness of reality. This is like a view from above that can afford insight into deeper truths about both the external and internal aspect of the physical reality. Sometimes you might hear this shift referred to as moving into a higher level of consciousness. His spiritual success is marked by the ability to gain higher and higher levels of consciousness. Notice that the music expresses this as well in the third verse, where the instrumentation builds and swells to greater and greater heights. The same idea is being more abstractly expressed in the title, Man at the Garden. The title's a phrase that's never used in the song, so where the hell does it come from? Kendrick is known for using a lot of biblical references, so naturally it makes sense to connect this to the story of Adam and Eve. This is one of the first stories in the Bible, where God creates the first humans, Adam and Eve, and places them in a garden. This garden is a paradise where God provides for all of their physical needs, external and internal. much like how Kendrick describes himself in verses 1 and 2. God tells them that in this paradise, they're free to do whatever they please, except one thing. Don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And one day, there's this talking snake that comes along and convinces them to do the one thing that they're not supposed to do.
Dumbass.
They go ahead, eat the fruit, and it says that they became like God, knowing good and evil. This is a move into a higher level of consciousness, like what Kendrick displays in verse 3, where he takes up the spiritual perspective that is like God, knowing good and evil. In the first half of the verse, he states what is good, his family, his community, his relationship with God. But in the second half, he states what is evil, the hate, the pain, and the lames that can speak. The progression of the song parallels the progression of Adam and Eve's move into a higher level of consciousness. Okay, I get it, but who's the man he's talking about? Is it Adam? Is it the snake? Is it God? I'd say he's not referring to any man in particular, but man is in the general category of mankind itself. And actually, for you nerds out there like myself, in the original language that this Bible story was written in, Adam translates exactly to mankind. The story of Adam and Eve is a metaphor that explains the human condition. I just pissed off some Christian fundamentalists with that one, but it is what it is.
God is watching!
In the garden, they confused having the benefits of God with the belief that they themselves were God. In eating the fruit, they now took up this divine nature that they weren't initially given, and so the story concludes with God casting them out of paradise. This created a separation between the physical and the spiritual. To be cast out of paradise is the human condition where we must now bear the responsibility of being godlike. With the knowledge of good and evil comes the burden for every person to do good and resist evil. Our lives are determined by the way we steward the connection between the spiritual and physical. We can become more conscious on the spiritual level, giving us a greater capacity to do good and resist evil in the physical, or our consciousness can degrade into a lack of goodness and susceptibility to evil. At the end of Man at the Garden, when it all builds to the height of the song, the music cuts, only to hear the voice of Kendrick say, "Tell me why you think you deserve the greatest of all time, motherfucker." This could be interpreted as a double entendre. You could look at him as asking why we deserve to have the greatest of all time, or you could look at him as asking why we deserve to be the greatest of all time. But honestly, f*** a double entendre. I think the fact that there's no distinction is exactly what he's getting at. The degree to which you know yourself on a spiritual level is the degree to which it's possible for you to have on the physical level. To be great requires you to have greatness. To have greatness requires you to be great. They are one and the same. But the question at the end, Kendrick challenges us that if you're great, show me where you have greatness. This comes back to his beef with Drake. Drake believed himself to be great, and Kendrick pushed back and said, prove it. Show me you have greatness. Hey, and we can all sit back, laugh, and enjoy it until he flips it back on us. How many of us believe ourselves to be great? Prove it.
Everybody wanna be great, but the work don't relate.
Man at the Garden tells us that the spiritual level is about knowing who we are, and the physical level is about putting it into action. True greatness is when you have conscious continuity between the spiritual and the physical. The question at the end is not meant to discourage us, but to inspire and challenge us. This is not something that just happens. It's the hero's journey each one of us has to take in life. And the first step is for you to courageously dive into the unknown so that you might receive the key to the kingdom. In June of 2024, Kendrick Lamar made a surprise appearance in his hometown at the graduating ceremony for Compton College.
You know, y'all had a lot of hardship, not only in your house, in your communities, but most importantly, within yourself. And that's the toughest thing to overcome. And we still growing day by day, brick by brick, making sure that we develop not only in the physical form, but in the spiritual as well, you know?
Kendrick said that the toughest thing to overcome is yourself. This comes 1 month after his battle with Drake, and he's out here talking about that what's most important is the battle within. In GNX, Kendrick offers us guidance to this internal battle, but to understand it better, we gotta refer to one of his personal guides, Eckhart Tolle. Tolle is a spiritual teacher who you might have heard featured on his last album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. While he's not explicitly cited in GNX like that, his influence can be found implicit throughout the entire album. In his best-selling book, The Power of Now, Tolle gives an autobiographical account where at one point he didn't believe life was worth living.
I cannot live with myself any longer. This was the thought that kept repeating itself in my mind. Then suddenly I became aware of what a peculiar thought it was. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with.
The idea that we're made up of different selves is something that modern psychology has picked up on, and something I've talked about a lot in my videos such as Arcane, where I discussed personality archetypes, or my video on Doja Cat where I discussed the daimonic. Not demonic, daimonic. Both of those concepts are very relevant to today's conversation, so I'd recommend checking them out. I want to note, it's important to clarify that I myself and most other serious thinkers on this topic don't view this as something literal, but a helpful metaphor to help explain and approach certain behaviors and actions. Kendrick Lamar, being a deeply metaphorical artist and a student of psychology, brings up different versions of himself all throughout his career.
K-Dot, Kung Fu Kenny. Can you find a distinction point between those two?
There's definitely a big difference. K-Dot, this is me prepping myself as far as the lyrical ability, whether it's through rhyme schemes, whether it's through metaphors. And I look at Kung Fu Kenny as a master of the craft. Now you're just not connecting with people in the studio or your homies, you're connecting with people around the world universally.
K-Dot and Kung Fu Kenny is just one example. Look at how he introduced himself at the Super Bowl.
I go by the name of K-Dot, Kendrick Lamar, okay, Lamar, Mr. Morale.
Hell, in the song Reincarnated, the voice of God tells him that every individual is only a version of you. So yeah, there's a shit ton of Kendrick Lamars, and throughout his career, he's used music to express many of these different versions. In GNX, he lets us know of at least one other version of himself in the unreleased song known as Bodies. It can only be found in the teaser trailer for the album, as well as at the top of the Super Bowl.
Reincarnated with love. My Gemini twin back power went up.
Gemini is Kendrick's astrology sign that he's identified with not just in this song, but many other projects as well.
I'm still an old school Gemini. Your horoscope is a Gemini. My alter ego was Gemini.
Gemini in Latin translates to twins, and it's a symbol that's known to represent duality. Duality is another central theme that really can be seen pop up throughout the entirety of Kendrick's discography. It's most evident in Damn, where the album was designed to be listened to in a dual manner, front to back or back to front. Now, I didn't bring up astrology to tell you that if you take the freeway to work tomorrow, you're gonna die. I brought it up because Kendrick is referencing the Gemini origin story, the myth of Castor and Pollux. But seriously, don't take the freeway to work tomorrow. In the myth, Castor and Pollux are twins, but of two different fathers. Castor's father was the king of Sparta, a mortal man, but Pollux's father was Zeus, a god. Together, they represent the duality of the physical and the spiritual. The story goes that the twins were inseparable, but during a battle, Castor was killed. Pollux then prayed to Zeus to share his immortality with Castor to bring his twin back to life. His request was approved, and so they were transformed into the constellation Gemini, where they could be together for all eternity. This brings us to where Kendrick is today in the hero's journey. In the phase of the return, this same motif is represented in a stage known as Master of Two Worlds. The two worlds it's referring to is the duality we've been talking about, the physical and the spiritual. Kendrick got his Gemini twin back, expressing that he's mastered the two, and he points us to the myth of Castor and Pollux to help realize the process it takes for us to do the same. Castor died and was saved by Pollux so that they can be joined together in the heavens, representing that in our own lives, the physical must die in order that the spiritual can redeem it. Eckhart Tolle expresses this idea when he differentiates the I and the self. For Tolle, the I is the aspect of us that identifies with the physical. The self, on the other hand, is the aspect of us that is divine and identifies with the spiritual. His book, The Power of Now, is all about getting us in touch with the deeper self that immediately recognizes spiritual truth, resonates with it, and gains strength from it. For Eckhart Tolle and Kendrick Lamar, the key to the kingdom is realizing your deeper self. This echoes the words of Jesus when he said, "Behold, the kingdom of God is within you." Before anything, we have to realize our identity in the spiritual. That is the process that takes up 82.3529411764706% of the hero's journey, where one travels into the unknown in order to find the key that unlocks who they truly are. And in Whacked Out Murals, Kendrick's guidance tells us who we are.
No, you are God.
In other moments of GNX, we see him reflect on the internal battles he had to fight in order to come to this realization. One of the places we get to see this kind of reflection is in the song Reincarnated, but these reflections are unlike anything we've ever seen from him. In fact, it's not even about Kendrick Lamar as we know him in this life, but who he was in past lives.
I did past life progression last year when it f***ed me up. Reincarnated on this earth for 100 plus.
Kendrick said he did past life regression, which is a type of therapy that uses hypnosis to explore and even potentially access memories of past lives. Now, I don't know if he actually did this or not, or if he's using this to tell a broader story, but I don't even think that's the point. You know, that's like asking whether or not Adam and Eve are literal people who existed. Who cares? People online have even tried to argue that in verse 1, his past life was an actual guy named John Lee Hooker, and in verse 2, his past life was either Dinah Washington, Billie Holiday, or Tallulah Bankhead. Ingenious analysis. Whoever the hell it is, I don't give a shit. Hey, you guys might be right, but whether or not he actually did past life regression and actually believes that in another life he was these historical individuals does nothing for the meaning he's communicating. I'm sorry, your literal interpretations will continue to unimpress me. The concept of having a past life expresses that no journey starts in isolation. There have been infinite journeys before us that's contributed to where each of us is individually at today. Kendrick has always been a unique artist to the degree in which he pays respects to those who have come before him, whether their impact was good, bad, or somewhere in between. You see this in GNX alone with the amount of samples and references to other historic artists. He's got a song named after Luther Vandross. He mentions Anita Baker. He uses a chorus from SWV. He cites Nas, Tupac, Biggie, and so much more. The entire music video for Squabble Up is a nod to black artists and the culture that made him who he is. On a collective level, he's constantly honoring the past legacy of his music and culture. However, this song is about his past at the individual level. At this level, he uses the concept of reincarnation to take a closer look into his deeper self. Reincarnation is most commonly associated with the religion of Hinduism, and a little context here is gonna help. In Hinduism, when you die, your soul is reborn into a new body. This comes along with the idea of karma, where your actions in this life have an impact on your next life. The goal, however, is to break free of this cycle and enter into what they call moksha. This is enlightenment that is achieved by, guess what? Realizing your deeper self, the key to the kingdom. That's just my quick summary. It's definitely not a comprehensive account of reincarnation, karma, and moksha, but it gives us enough for what we're doing here today. In the song Reincarnated, he looks at some harmful patterns of his own lives that has kept him from realizing his deeper self. He does this once again using the AAB structure. In the A section, he looks at his past lives. In verses 1 and 2, he introduces two different characters that are both incredibly gifted artists. The first is a guitar player he notes as the head of rhythm and blues, and the second one is a vocalist he calls a musical genius. They both obtained incredible power and fame from their talents, but each had a crutch that led to their demise. With the guitar player, he says that he manipulated power and lied to the masses.
Died with my money, gluttony was too attractive. Reincarnated.
With the vocalist, he says that she self-indulged and needed drugs.
I died with syringes pinched in me. Reincarnated.
In the last line of each verse, he explains how they died and ends it saying reincarnated, telling us that they didn't achieve moksha or enlightenment. They had everything they could ask for in the physical, but they never took the time to realize the spiritual, so they continued to remain stuck in the cycle of reincarnation. In the third verse, we enter the B section where we move on to his present life as Kendrick Lamar, and this is where shit gets kind of crazy. It starts off with him reflecting on the time his father kicked him out of the house, and now going through his own journey, he looks back at it with much more clarity.
My father kicked me out the house, I finally forgive him. I'm old enough to understand the way I was living. Ego and pride had me looking at him with resentment.
This is also connected to the first verse where we see in one of his past lives he was also kicked out of his father's house. So while he's kicked out of his house in his current life, there's a greater pattern at work here. His eternal soul that has been passing from one life to the next has been kicked out of the house of his own eternal father, God. In other words, each of his past lives has been separated from their deeper self. There's no conscious continuity between the physical and the spiritual. From here, he gets into a dialogue with God the Father, and this reflects an earlier stage in the hero's journey called Atonement with the Father. In this stage, the Father is representative of some authoritative figure who the hero has to confront and reconcile with. Psychologically, this is analogous to the confrontation and reconciliation with a part of the deeper self that one has been separated from. In Kendrick's case, the dialogue with God affords insight into a dark part of him he hadn't realized. In his conversation, he begins asking, Father, did I finally get it right? He wants to know if he's successfully broken the destructive cycle in all of his past lives, to which God responds unfavorably.
Son, you do well, but your heart is closed.
God tells him that his pride needs to die, but Kendrick proceeds to lay out all of his selfless deeds, similar to what we saw in Man of the Garden. When Kendrick mentions the deed of trying to push peace in LA, God calls him out and exposes that deep down, he still loves war. After a little hesitation, Kendrick finally obeys and opens his heart. This allows God to tell him exactly what we're all looking to find on our journey.
I could tell you who you are.
When God tells him who he is, the description is eerily similar to Lucifer, Satan, the devil himself. It references Isaiah 14, which is a chapter in the Bible about God's victory over the king of Babylon, a king who's meant to represent Satan. Like Kendrick, Lucifer has been cited to be an incredibly talented musician.
My greatest music director was you.
And like Kendrick, Lucifer has been cited to have been kicked out of his father's house or cast out of paradise. paradise.
I sent you down to earth because you was broken. Rehabilitation, not psychosis.
Kendrick takes a unique interpretation that God cast Satan down to earth for the sake of rehabilitation. Now, whether or not this aligns with the Christian doctrine is less important to me than what's being symbolically expressed. This requires us to set aside any preconceived notions of Satan as a single external figure. I don't believe Kendrick is claiming to be the one and only Lord of Darkness and Hell.
The man of the night, Satan!
Instead, this depicts Satan as a universal internal figure. The human condition has a duality. Within us is not just a god, but also a devil. In the hero's journey, the atonement with the Father is often about dealing with the dark side within us. This is perfectly exemplified in one of the most iconic lines in cinema history.
I am your father.
In Star Wars, when they reveal that Darth Vader is Luke's father, it reveals that the darkness is in his blood. It's a part of who he is. In Kendrick's dialogue with God, the darkness that has followed Kendrick from one life to the next is exposed to the light.
Centuries you manipulated man with music.
This very harsh but true revelation inspires Kendrick to make a pact with God, to use his gifts to bring understanding and live on in harmony now.
I rewrote the devil's story just to take our power back. Incarnated.
Kendrick becomes conscious of evil within himself, and this empowers him to confront the harmful patterns that have carried from one life to the next. Rather than ending the verse saying reincarnated like he did with the first two verses, he ends the final verse saying carnated, expressing that he's broken the cycle. He's reunited the spiritual with the physical. He's realized his deeper self. The reflections in Reincarnated show us that a part of the responsibility of being godlike, knowing good and evil, requires us to confront the darkness within us. This song showed us the divine part that helped him know evil within himself, but there's also a divine part that helped him know the good within himself. To see this, we'll contrast the song Reincarnated with the song Gloria. To look at these songs side by side shows us the duality of the deeper self, and together it offers a much more well-rounded perspective. While Gloria gives us another look into Kendrick Lamar's deeper self, it isn't obvious up front. The AAB structure is used once again, but to a whole other level, because once you hit the B section, you kind of gotta go back and listen to it all over again. At the top, he tells us that this song is about some complicated relationship, and for basically the whole thing, it seems like he's talking about some woman. But in the third verse, in the very last line that he speaks, we're told that he's not talking about a woman. This whole time, he was talking about his pen.
Ain't no bitch like my cause that been my pen.
This big reveal shows us that this song was using a mixture of personification and metaphor. While his pen is being personified as a lover, it's also a metaphor for his own artistic ability. The pen symbolizes the inner source of creativity that resides in his deeper self. Now, there's really no limits to the ways in which one's deeper self can manifest. All the different versions of Kendrick, Kung Fu Kenny, K-Dot, OK Llama, they're all just really different manifestations of who he is. And in this song, we get access to a version known as Gloria. Now, this is the first time Kendrick has identified a version of himself as the opposite gender. And I don't bring that up to make some statement about gender identity. I bring this up because Gloria represents an opposing force within him. We see this when Kendrick refers to his pen as his contradiction. In Reincarnated, he confronts God the Father, but here he confronts Gloria the Goddess. The song is once again a reflection of a previous stage in the hero's journey known as meeting with the goddess. It's a crucial step in the journey, where one is confronted with the opposing forces within themselves. This confrontation challenges the hero to connect with parts of themselves they might be naturally unfamiliar with, which can lead to a deeper, more complete understanding of who they are. When approached properly, it can lead us to a higher level of consciousness, revealing what is good within our deeper self. Kendrick picks up on this when Gloria offers him comfort and helped him work through his emotions when his grandma died.
Remember when Granny died? You looked at me and said, baby, dry your eyes. Depend on me as your relief. Let your anger be mine.
He notes the way Gloria pushed him to grow.
Said you go see other people if I didn't grow with you.
He points out Gloria's role as a spiritual guide.
Hated when I hit the club to get some wrote them off, rather see me hit the church and get religious.
In each instance, Gloria was a divine figure that pushed him to level up and be better. Its expression as something divine is probably most evident in the interlude where SZA steps in to voice the grievances of Gloria.
I gave you life. I breathed the charisma in this. I bring the blessings. I gave you power. I bring the rainfall. I gave you hustle.
These reprimanding words are in a response to a time in Kendrick's life where the relationship got rocky and they weren't on speaking terms.
Then you blocked me, I said,
Now, to be fair, many people never get on speaking terms with their deeper self. It takes courage to face that inner voice that constantly challenges you to grow and step into unfamiliar spaces.
You either heal or you kill.
Both is true. It takes some tough skin just to deal with you.
Kendrick shows us that the goddess alone has a duality that we have to approach with care. He keeps it real in that line and acknowledges that our experience with the goddess can be negative. While in one instance it can inspire us to higher heights, it can also seduce us into passivity and untapped potential. Some abandon their journey in this step, as seen in the Greek myth of Odysseus. Odysseus at one point gives up his journey to have sex with a nymph on an island for 7 years straight.
You got that good for real.
And I know you're thinking, my man, but nah, that f***ed him. I mean, probably literally. In 7 years, he probably experimented getting pegged. In this stage, there is a real danger of getting completely derailed from realizing our deeper self. From a cultural perspective, you can see the impact on a society that neglects this part of themselves. I mean, take toxic masculinity, for example, which, by the way, is not a political issue, it's an existential issue. Masculinity becomes toxic when it's not properly balanced with its feminine counterpart. Men who fail to integrate these qualities tend to lack emotional depth and react based on instinct, typically in the form of aggression and violence. It can also lead to projection onto real women, usually in the form of hypersexuality.
You're hot. I'm not I just mean
or it creates a deep contempt that is very apparent with the rise of incels. There is such a lack of high quality male figures in our mainstream culture, and Kendrick calls this out in Watch the Party Die.
I feel for the women that deal with the clown and nerd shit. Can't blame them. Today they ain't really got much to work with.
Gloria is the name given by Kendrick to his pen, emphasizing the connection between his deeper self and creativity. The song expresses that his relationship with her was necessary to create what is good. This notion extends beyond creating music or art and into the most important individual act of creating who you are.
I have to keep the pen moving. You know, it's my not from sanity. This also has given me the opportunity to learn myself. You know, find out who I am. When you write, man, you gotta sit and go through the emotions and be vulnerable about it. And so a lot of these records are right, man. It's a lot of stuff I probably would never express or even known about myself if it wasn't for an instrumental behind it.
We need this opposing force that challenges us to get in touch with the unfamiliar parts of us in order to grow and realize our deeper self. As a part of the human condition, our responsibility of being godlike, knowing good and evil, demands that on a spiritual level, we continually pursue higher levels of consciousness. In both Reincarnated and Gloria, Kendrick Lamar reflects on how he did this through two different but equally important confrontations within himself. The God that reveals what is evil, and the goddess that reveals what is good. When this duality is placed side by side, they can be brought together to realize the wholeness of who you are, your spiritual, divine, deeper self, the key to the kingdom. After the hero journeys into the unknown to receive this key, he can bring it back to the known to unlock who he truly is. As one who has now mastered the spiritual, they can now manifest it in the physical through deeper action. Have you noticed that in almost every recent graphic, headshot, and even his music videos, Kendrick Lamar looks bored as hell. Every photo this man puts out, he's just got this blank stare of discontent. I mean, he didn't even capitalize a single letter on the album. This lack of enthusiasm has some intentionality. Before this, his recent work was very introspective, and this was depicted in the imagery surrounding each project. In the cover art for Damn, his eyes are downcast, looking conflicted and stressed out. In the cover art for Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, he's looking into the distance, expressing a desire to create a brighter future for his family as a responsible father, husband, and public figure. However, in the cover art for GNX, he's looking directly at us. But what does he want?
I need their families mortified, get their bodies organized. I want his head cracked, I want agony, assault and battery. Bring his head off. I think it's time to watch the party die. Watch the party die. Watch the party die.
I think it's time to watch the party die. Diddy parties, political parties, birthday parties. Throughout this video, I've been throwing in references to a song called Watch the Party Die, and maybe for some of you, you were a little lost because you don't remember hearing it on the album. Well, that's because it's not there. Since 2010, Kendrick has put out a series of standalone singles that come out shortly before he drops an album. It's been known as the Heart series, as the songs are meant to capture the heart behind the project he's putting out. For GNX, things looked a little different this year because Drake took the title The Heart Part 6 for one of his dicks. What? Drake took the title of The Heart Part 6 for one of his diss tracks, and then in response, Kendrick put it in the album. But never mind all that, because before GNX dropped, he still released this song that played a similar role to all the other songs in the Heart series. It was untitled and released unexpectedly on Kendrick's Instagram, but most of the online community calls it Watch the Party Die, as that line is repeated throughout the entire song. In it, we get a look behind the curtain of the motivations that ignited his battle with Drake. In one listen through, it's not hard to see that the beef represented something much more than just a personal vendetta. He serves a critique of the entire industry in mainstream culture. future.
The shit done got too wicked to apologize.
For Kendrick, the state of things is so bad that we have to make a dramatic shift, saying, burn the whole village, we start over, it's really that time. The first two verses identify how deep the evil goes, and in response, he chooses violence. Hence the black Air Force Ones on the cover. The third verse is pretty interesting because he expresses a degree of guilt around the violence, but ultimately he deems it necessary. Through this necessary violence, the chorus puts up a prayer to God to protect him, with the additional request to keep him set apart.
Dear God, draw the line, they trying to confuse him with me.
He asked this line to be drawn between him and the rest so that we as an audience can know the difference between what is good and what is evil. This adds some background to the sentiments in his line, not like us, and really the entire beef with Drake. For him, it was a statement that drew a line between good and evil in the industry and mainstream culture. Unfortunately for Drake, he was the figure chosen to be sacrificed at the altar in order to watch the party die along with all of its corruption. In the story of Adam and Eve, God told them not to eat the fruit of knowledge of good and evil because when they did, they would die. While we all, of course, will literally die, this is more of a metaphorical death that is now a part of our human condition. The price of being godlike, knowing good and evil, is that we must die in order to live. This idea can be found in Christianity with the resurrection, Hinduism with reincarnation, it's in the hero's journey, the Gemini myth of Castor and Pollux, the spiritual teachings of Eckhart Tolle, and the album of GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Before this album, all his projects were in the midst of this battle to put to death what is evil and bring to life what is good within himself. In GNX, he now moves from the spiritual battle within to the physical battle without. He's returned from his personal journey and now turns to the collective journey of humanity to destroy what is evil so that we can create what is good. Kendrick brings together the meaning of watch the party die in the final line where he acknowledges that through death, we can have life.
The kids live tomorrow, cause today the party just...
In part one, we looked at Man at the Garden, where Kendrick puts out this idea of a continuity between who you are and your actions. I described this as a continuity between the spiritual and the physical. In part two, we dove into the reflections of Kendrick's spiritual journey to seek out the divine within his deeper self. Now, in part three, we look to the moment where he brings what he's learned into the physical and takes deeper action. I use this language intentionally, as this is not just any action. Deeper action comes from the deeper self. It's when the spiritual becomes manifest in the physical. It's the conscious continuity that is the mark of true greatness. The greatness that Kendrick is claiming to have for himself and the greatness of someone who's gone through the hero's journey. The last stage of the return and the entire journey is titled Freedom to Live. In this stage, the hero has found conscious continuity between the spiritual and physical and lives freely as an embodiment of their deeper self. Kendrick named the album GNX after the car because it's a symbol for who he is. On March 19th, 2024, he posted on his Instagram that the best thing you can do is find a GNX. So I took his advice. I mean, I don't got money like that, but I figured that was good enough.
You're broke!
In a rare and recent interview, Kendrick tells us the intent behind his recent actions.
My intent was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I love when artists grit their teeth. Like, I still watch battle raps. This has always been the core definition of who I am.
Kendrick puts aside all that deep shit and brings it back to the basics of the game he loves. The rap battles he grew up with got a competitive spirit. Kendrick was born in 1987, the year the GNX was released, and it was born to compete. It famously hit 60 miles an hour in 4.7 seconds, beating out the best in class of its time. Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini. The GNX brought the spiritual into the physical. It manifested the highest level of auto engineering we had ever seen. It came out and challenged others to a whole other level of greatness. At the time, it was the greatest of all time. Kendrick today, the greatest of all time. What differentiates GNX from all the other albums is that it expresses Kendrick's deeper self. Along with that, there's a practical and real-life application of his beliefs, ideas, and who he is that's interwoven within all of it. I'm not saying that there wasn't any practicality before this, but the degree to which we see it in this album is bar none. More than just expressing who he is, the legacy of GNX is that it actively participates in its own message of deeper action. The hero at the end of their journey returns to where it all began. There they take deeper action to create change and impact the community. In GNX, Kendrick Lamar does this by elevating both the people and the place of the city where it all started. Los Angeles. GNX is a West Coast hip-hop album through and through. The music itself is a mix of old school and new school that perfectly captures the whole West Coast sound. Then there's the track Dodger Blue, which is a dedication to his city and the love he has for it. On Juneteenth, he hosted a one-off concert in LA known as the Pop-Out. There he brought rival gangs from all around the area on his stage together in a moment of peace and solidarity. That alone has an insane impact on the unity and betterment of the city. His speech for the Grammys was just him shouting out an entire list list of cities in the greater Los Angeles area.
We're gonna dedicate this one to the city. Compton, Rock, Long Beach, Inglewood, Hollywood, out to the Valley, San Bernardino.
It'd be hard to leave out the video for Not Like Us. It was filmed across multiple locations in his hometown, Compton. The video shoot had an open invite where he not only celebrated the place, but he celebrated the people. Kendrick takes deeper action in GNX with the way he elevates the people of Los Angeles and the great many artists, no matter their degree of popularity. The title track features 3 local LA rappers, Hidda J3, Young Threat, and Peso. Kendrick is hardly on the song. It's really just on the album to put local talent in the spotlight. For the first time in his career, he teamed up with DJ Mustard, and guess where he's from?
Los Angeles.
Other than SZA, literally every artist featured on the album is an LA native. One of the greatest stories behind the album is that he went to a Dodger game and heard a local mariachi singer perform named Dara Barrera. He liked what he heard so much that he brought her into the studio, and she ended up being featured on 3 different songs in the album. He brought in that Hispanic representation that is such a major part of LA. I know it's hard to believe, but I myself am part Hispanic. Kendrick Lamar uses GNX to represent Los Angeles as a part of who he is, and he takes deeper action to elevate the city and its people. The album is a work of art, painting a picture expressing that he's at the point in his journey to have the freedom to live and steps completely into his role as an artist.
I don't think I knew exactly what my role was. Early on, I had maybe clues of it, but now today I can truly say it's to express myself and express things that people can necessarily say on the daily and for them to actually relate to. You know, I've grew up with cats, still to this day can't have a conversation. The most meanest, aggressive individuals, but they can't even look you in the eye and express themselves the way they want to. So they resort to other things. I gotta do it for them. I gotta make records like Reincarnated. I gotta make records like Man in the Garden because they feel that way, but they cannot project it. When they hear somebody actually giving them affirmations, it allows them to speak more freely and be open.
Kendrick's role as an artist goes beyond just the city of Los Angeles and out into the world. He looks to express what he's feeling so people can relate to it, feel it, and become more conscious through it. He recognizes that the more conscious continuity, the more one is able to have the freedom to live. He's quoted elsewhere that music can be used to either electrify or pacify, and he's made it clear that his intention is to electrify. In GNX, the intent is clearly communicated back to the very first song on the album, Whacked Out Murals.
Everybody.
Wait, no, sorry, no, not that one.
This is not for lyricists, I swear it's not the sentiments. A double entendre, I want y'all to feel this shit.
Yes, there we go. He wants us to feel because feelings inspire action. When Kendrick is looking directly into your soul in the cover of his album, it's because he wants you to take action. Nothing makes this more clear than TV Off. The song is a literal call to action. He's calling on every listener to come alongside him and choose to level up.
It's not enough. Few solid left, but it's not enough. Few that'll really step, but it's not enough.
These same sentiments are expressed in Watch the Party Die when he says, "Where my soldiers at?" Or in Peekaboo, the sample at the top says, "Give me a helping hand," cause nobody's saying shit.
What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing.
To resist evil and do good is not just an individual battle, it's a collective battle. In the Super Bowl halftime show, on the biggest stage in the world, he concludes with the message for 133.5 million viewers to turn this TV off. He's saying, go outside. Touch some grass, do something, f***ing anything. We need more people with the courage to take action. Now you might be thinking, I haven't gone on my journey like he has. I'm still trying to discover who I am. Listen, the journey never ends. It's a constant process of achieving higher and higher levels of yourself.
This is me, this is Kendrick Lamar, 37 years old, and I still feel like I'm elevating. I'm still on the journey, though.
No matter where you're at on the journey, your path to discovery has to include action. You have to take each part of your spiritual journey and put it to action in the physical to see if it stands the test of reality. If it's right, your actions will tell. If it's wrong, you learn from it, you correct yourself, and get on the path you need to.
Any action is greater than no action.
Kendrick Lamar has offered us a gift through GNX in the way that he draws a line between good and evil, offers us guidance in our own journey, and takes deeper action to elevate our humanity. For us to receive this gift in its fullest, we have to participate in it with him. Art is the way for one mind on its own journey to extend the journey of other minds, ultimately enriching the journey of our collective humanity.
You have to believe in yourself and have to know that it's only one you. You're an amazing individual, unique. You're a miracle. I wake up every day and I'm like, this shit is crazy. And to know that in this existence and in this world as one individual is only you, and it's going to inspire people to have truth, because when everyone's authentic, what comes out of that is true love. You showing up as your true self, I'm showing up as my true self. And carrying that nature, it take you places.
Thank you so much for watching. I apologize I wasn't able to get to every song on the album, but look out for some shorts where I'll touch on some ideas that this video just didn't have time for. I hope you enjoyed enjoyed it and you learned something. If you liked it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell. If you loved it, feel free to sign up for my Patreon. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.
Turn this TV off, turn this